This is an unboxing of the 5-inch 800 by 480 HDMI display for the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi that I'm going to be using is the Raspberry Pi Model B Plus, if I'm not mistaken. So, open it up. That's what it looks like inside. We have the LCD screen and also a few accessories that come with it. This is probably the connection, the HDMI connection between the LCD and the Raspberry Pi. And there's a stylus that you can use with the LCD screen. Yeah, let's see if there's anything else. Nothing. Okay. So let's take a look at the LCD screen. Okay. The connection to the Raspberry Pi. This is the HDMI connection. So a few more things inside this plastic. There's the screws that we can use to elevate the LCD screen from on top of the Raspberry Pi. Let's see if I can take this out. So I'm guessing that this one would go on top of the screws here. This one and also this one, so that it makes the screen slightly elevated above the Raspberry Pi, so it doesn't touch the components of the Raspberry Pi. So now I'm going to connect my LCD screen with my Raspberry Pi. This is an older version of the Raspberry Pi, the one at the bottom here, and this one is the Raspberry Pi Model B Plus. And I have attached to it the GSM module, the SIM800, you have a SIM card, and since I have another module here, if I were to put the LCD screen on top, then it will be above the module like this, and so I can't use the dongle because it doesn't come close to use this connection here. So I will need to use a HDMI cable. So I have one right here to connect. I know it's a bit long, but that's the only thing I have on hand, and I'll see how it goes once I get it all connected. Now I've connected the LCD screen with the GSM module. So you see that it doesn't cover the entire pins of the GSM module, only a part of it, so I'm guessing that it's going to be on the top left. I'm going to try with the left side of the pins, like how I connected it here. And next step will be to turn it on and also to connect the HDMI to HDMI. So let me just give you a view of all the different sides of the connection of this setup. The LCD screen is here, and the GSM module is there, and then the Raspberry Pi from this side, and from this side that's how it looks, and from another side like that. So I could probably put some pins here to hold this up more steady. And this side, I know not the most elegant connection, but let's see whether it works first before we think about how can we make it more pretty. So one interesting note here that you must be aware of if you were to connect the LCD screen with the GSM module is that the connection for the HDMI is just right beside the antenna connection. So you won't be able to move the antenna that much, because you can probably put it in this orientation or on the other side. Now I've plugged in the power cable to the Raspberry Pi and also the GSM module, because apparently we need two dedicated power supply to the GSM module. So that's why I need to have these two power sources coming from these two power adapters. And let's try to turn it on. Now, according to the specifications of the LCD screen, it should be a plug-and-play item, so it should be it should start up without much configuration needed. So let's try. So the power is on now. It's the power for the Raspberry Pi, and this is the power for the GSM module. Nothing is showing on screen yet. So just now I made a mistake of putting the power cable to this side. Here. It shouldn't be here because this is the data connection to the GSM module, not the power connection. Now the power connection is here for the Raspberry Pi, but the screen is not light up yet. I'm thinking that it could be because of maybe the HDMI cable. So I'm gonna change this HDMI cable and see whether it works after with the new one. Now I got my system ready. I made a few corrections to the connection before. For example, there's nothing wrong with the HDMI cable, but it was something to do with me putting in the LCD screen in a wrong pin. So instead of on the left, it should be on the right. Okay, so I managed to get the LCD screen working, but the resolution is not good because it hasn't been set properly. So this is what it looks like if you do not set the resolution correctly. You see some black screen, black parts of the screen on the right, and also some at the bottom here. So I just made the changes through the boot/config.txt file, and I'm going to reboot now to see whether the settings are correct. Rebooting it now. There's still some part of the screen that is not correctly configured. Oh, now it looks good. Now it looks better. So I guess the settings work. So now I am installing the driver for this LCD screen, specifically the touchscreen driver, because the screen can work out of the box, but the touchscreen doesn't work without installing the driver. But there are some problems with the screen here. It might be because it's not the original version of the screen. You can see some blinking. I'm not sure whether that's caused by either an improper connection or it could be the quality of the LCD screen. So now I am installing the driver for this LCD screen and touchscreen, and I got it from the website. I'll put it in the link below, and it looks fairly straightforward. So let's just wait for it to finish. One thing I think is important to mention is that once you install the software, the driver for this LCD screen, then it might change the config.txt file, and if you already have a custom configuration in that text file, then the installation of the driver might disturb that. So you need to check the config file for those changes. I faced this problem because I have a GSM module, like what I mentioned in the beginning of the video, and I made a few changes to use the GSM module. I had to disable Bluetooth, and what happens when I install the LCD screen, the driver of the LCD screen, then it deleted that setting, and which makes me not be able to use the GSM, and then I had to spend a few minutes, actually a few hours, just figuring out what went wrong, and then to change the settings back to what it was before. So keep a lookout for that one if you're using the LCD screen with the GSM module. So got the touchscreen to work by installing the correct driver. Now for this particular model, it's from a website. I'll put the link in the description below to download the driver. There's two types of drivers. One is the just for the screen, and the other is for the screen and the touch screen. So download that one, and then I'll put that link in the description below. So right now it works as it is advertised, and I'm fairly a happy customer. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments section below, and see you in the next video.